প্রিয় দর্শক, দেশে বিদেশে টিভি চ্যানেলের পক্ষ থেকে সবাইকে তৃতীয় শুভেচ্ছা। এখন একটি বিশেষ লাইভ অনুষ্ঠান। এই লাইভ অনুষ্ঠানে যোগ দিয়েছেন আমাদের কানাডার অনারেবল বিল ব্লেয়ার, মিনিস্টার অফ পাবলিক সেফটি অ্যান্ড ইমার্জেন্সি প্রিপেয়ারনেস। সাক্ষাৎকারটি গ্রহণ করবেন আমাদের কমিউনিটির সন্তান, বুলগারিয়ার রাজনীতিতে ইতিমধ্যে তিনি পা রেখেছেন, সারওয়ার চৌধুরী। আমি Mr. Bill Blair, welcome to our studio.
Mr. Minto, I am delighted to be able to join you here today.
Thank you. Sarwar Chowdhury, so just you may start your interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and I want to welcome all our viewers tonight to Deshe Bideshi TV. And I want to thank Mr. Nazrul Mintu for setting up this great segment, our second segment, where we are interviewing public officials and asking them questions on behalf of our viewers. And so with that, I'd like to welcome the Honorable Bill Blair, Canada's Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, to our show today.
Good evening, Sarwar, and good evening to all of the viewers of Deshe Bideshi. I'm always honored to have the opportunity to come on. I also want to extend my gratitude to Nazrul Minto for allowing us this opportunity to have this conversation. And by the way, it's always good to see my old and very dear friend, Sarwar Chowdhury. Unfortunately, I spend most of my time now in Ottawa because we are dealing with issues of the pandemic and a number of other important issues. But it's nice to see old friends again.
Thank you so much. Now, Minister, we know you've been hard at work, and at the beginning of this month, your government announced a landmark ban on military-style assault rifles. Can you just walk us through how that ban came about and how the ban works and the type of rifle assault weapons that it covers?
Yeah, of course, Sarwar. And you know, I spent most of my life working hard to keep the people of Toronto safe, and now the people of Canada safe in my new responsibilities as the Minister of Public Safety. And we have seen a number of very tragic incidents, not just around the world, but right here in Canada, where certain types of weapons were not designed for hunting or for sports purposes, but designed for soldiers to use in combat. But tragically, these same weapons have been used at a mosque in Sainte-Foy, Quebec, to kill 6 innocent worshippers. Used in one of our universities in Montreal to kill 14 innocent women. Used most recently to kill innocent people in Nova Scotia. The same types of weapons that were used in Christchurch to kill 51 Muslim worshippers. These weapons have no place in a civil society. And because I have always worked hard to try to keep people safe, I spoke to the Prime Minister and said, I strongly believe there is no place for these weapons in Canada. And so, on May 1st, we brought forward by order in council a prohibition. Over 1,500 of these types of weapons, again, that were designed for soldiers to use in combat, not for any other civilian use, and they have now become prohibited. And you know, these are not weapons that are used by hunters or even sports shooters in our country. I have nothing but respect for those people, but they are weapons that represent such a significant danger. I felt very strongly there is no place for them in our society, and so they are now prohibited. And by the order in council that we passed, immediately, no more of these guns can ever be sold in Canada again. And for the ones that are here, we're going to work hard, bring forward legislation to have a buyback program so that we can treat the people who own these guns fairly, but also remove them from our society. I also want to tell you, Sarwar, I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk, but this is only the first of very many steps that our government will take. And many people ask me, in the middle of a pandemic, is this the right time to do this? And unfortunately, in our country and around the world, gun violence has not gone away because of the illness. And in fact, even the terrible tragic shooting that occurred in Nova Scotia reminds us that we always have a responsibility to do our very best to keep Canadians safe, and that's why we acted as quickly and as strongly as we have.
And so to talk about some of those future steps, we hear many times and in many instances that a significant amount of gun violence in Canada originates from weapons that are smuggled in from the United States. As part of some of these future steps, is the government looking at taking steps and measures to close off that supply line?
Yeah, of course. You know, there are three ways in which criminals get guns, Sarwar. Many of them are smuggled across the border from the United States, and there are very many guns in the United States. Many of them are also being stolen from law-abiding gun owners in this country. So guns that were legal are stolen and end up in the hands of criminals. And finally, there's also a problem with people who buy guns legally and then sell them illegally for a terrible profit. And so we're going to close all of those sources of supply. And most importantly, at the border, I will tell you, when I was the police chief in Toronto, we traced the origin of every crime gun that was used to commit a crime in Toronto. And almost 70% of those guns that we traced originated in the United States. And so when we came to Ottawa, we started to invest very strongly in resources at the border for our border services officers, new technologies, X-ray machines, etc., even additional dogs to do searches on the vehicles that were coming in, to do a better job of detecting these guns. But it's not good enough just to in greater enforcement at the border. We know the police have to be able to do investigations into the criminal organizations and gangs that are responsible for the smuggling of those guns. And we're going to bring legislation forward. At the very first, as soon as Parliament resumes, I'm ready to bring forward laws that will make stronger laws at our borders with new offenses and new penalties, so that the police can do their job, but when they catch somebody, that the law and the courts are prepared to hold them to account. You know, we promised Canadians in the last election, when I went to the people of Scarborough Southwest and asked them to re-elect me, we promised that we were going to strengthen gun control laws in this country, and we have not forgot our promise. We're keeping our promise. And we've taken the first step, and there's so much more to do. And so certainly on the borders, we are going to take very, very strong action, because that's the right thing to do, to keep guns out of the hands of people that would commit crimes with them.
That's good to hear. I just want to ask a quick follow-up on one of the types of guns and the way it's getting into the hands of people that you mentioned, which is handguns. We often hear, living in an urban city like Toronto, that it's handguns that are through theft are falling into the wrong hands. How do you see that playing out? Would it be the federal government working with other levels of government to give local police services potentially more powers to be able to track down and stop this type of theft?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So there are many things that we can and must do. You mentioned that many of these guns are stolen. You remember a couple of years ago, it was a terrible tragedy where a man went down onto the Danforth and started shooting innocent people and killed 2 young girls. The gun that man was using was stolen from a gun store in Saskatchewan and ended up on the streets of Toronto. And so I will also bring forward regulation and new laws that will require all handguns to be stored in a safe or a vault, to make it far more difficult for them to be stolen. And as well, I've spoken to Mayor Tory in Toronto, but also mayors right across the country. And many of them are saying, but Minister, we want to do more. We want to have stronger restrictions and stronger controls in our cities. And so we're going to bring forward legislation that will empower the municipalities to take additional steps. And for example, in some parts of the country, they're very comfortable with people owning guns and using them in their communities, but not perhaps in Toronto. And so if the city of Toronto and the people of Toronto wanted to say that no one should be able to possess or use or store a gun within the city limits, I believe the city should have the power to do that. And so we'll work to make sure that they have that authority. There is not just one thing we need to do. And I'm reminded, especially when we talk about the city of Toronto, it's not just a matter, Sarwar, of reducing the demand for guns. The supply of guns. We have to reduce the demand. And that means investing in kids, investing in communities, going into communities to look at all the conditions that give rise to a young person joining a gang, and start to address those conditions, to help them do better in school, to help them do better in their communities, to find better jobs, to live better lives, to make better choices. And so we also know we will deal with strong gun control measures, but we also have to help families and parents raise their children, and communities and schools and all of the people that help make our community work. We have to support them so that our kids will make good decisions and not get involved in gun and gang violence. I will tell you from experience as a police officer, those are the types of investments that can make a difference and keep a community safe.
Thank you. Those are the investments that we want to hear about, and we look forward to seeing in our communities. Now, moving on to another pressing issue, which is COVID-19. We've known, and seen that for the past 2 months or so, the Canada-US border has been shut, and rightfully so, to non-essential travel. Given that the situation in the US is still volatile, and in some Canadian provinces, the numbers seem to be seesawing back and forth, how long are we prepared to keep that border shut with the United States?
So I can tell you that the responsibility for closing the border was mine. And on behalf of the Prime Minister, I reached out to the Americans and said to them that I wanted to work together with them reciprocally to close our border. We didn't want to just shut the border down because, our economy and our society are very much integrated with the United States. There is literally billions of dollars in trade that crosses that border every day, and we rely on that. The food that is on the shelves of our grocery stores, the drugs that are in our pharmacies, important essential goods and trade that crosses back and forth that border every single day. And we also know many Canadians and many Americans work on the other side of the border, and they're doing essential work. And so the arrangement that I worked out with the Americans was to allow the supply lines to be maintained and for essential workers to continue to move back and forth across the border. We put a number of very important measures in place to make sure that could be done safely, so as not to put Canadians or Americans at risk as a result of the movement of those people. And we have eliminated non-essential travel. I know that has been difficult. We know that has been challenging, but it was necessary to keep our countries safe. And I will tell you, my concern is always for the safety of Canadians. And so we're in regular conversations with the Americans about our border. And in those conversations, we always will ensure that we have all of the measures in place that are necessary to keep Canadians safe. And as you said, we've seen in New York and in Michigan, and even in Ontario and Quebec, the virus continues to be a serious problem in those places. And so we will maintain the restriction on non-essential travel as long as is necessary. We're also looking at, and I think this is really important, on both sides of the border, but certainly in Canada, we're looking at ways we can continue to improve the screening of people coming and going from our country and into our country to make sure that they are not carrying the illness. And if, for example, when they come, we require people to isolate for 14 days in quarantine. And that's to protect the rest of Canadians from the potential of being exposed. And as we improve testing, for example, our tracking and tracing of individuals coming across the border, as Canadians become more aware of what is necessary through social isolation and the use of personal protection equipment, all of those things will enable us as we go forward to attempt to reopen our economy and to get people back to work and kids back to school. That those things, it'll be necessary to make sure we have all of those protections in place.
Thank you. And when it comes to our own provinces, we see, yes, in Ontario and Quebec, the virus continues to be a serious problem. And I don't want to downplay other provinces, but in some provinces, the virus the numbers are decreasing in terms of new infections every day. And when we see that sort of distinction between, let's say, Quebec, Ontario, and some of the eastern provinces in Canada, and some of the provinces out west, actually, at any point would we look at putting in interprovincial restrictions on travel?
We have not done that as a federal government, but I can tell you some of the individual provinces have put on some measures of interprovincial border control. And what they've done is, by agreement, they've entered into certain agreements between certain provinces regarding the movement of people. Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick, for example, had such an arrangement. But our principal responsibility is to protect all Canadians within the Canadian border, and we've taken those steps. But I think, again, as right across the country, we're learning much more about this illness, and we're learning from the experience of other jurisdictions as well. The things that have happened in Asia, for example, or in Europe, and even now in the United States. We're also learning from each other here in Canada. And we saw, for example, New Brunswick had a very good record, and they had achieved a lot, and they were essentially virus-free right up until today. And unfortunately, the illness has reappeared in New Brunswick, and so they're going to have to step back in and again elevate the precautions and the restrictions that they previously had in place. And so I think it's something that we'll always have to sort of, at least until we get a vaccine for this illness, we'll have to stay vigilant. We'll have to continue to be cautious and careful. We're never going to put people at risk, but at the same time, we know that the restrictions have had a very big impact on all of us. And you know, I look at children who, the summer months are starting. And families want to go to the park. They want to go out and play games with their kids. Businessmen want to get back to business. Families want to meet and be together. I also am very mindful. Just as we passed Ramadan and our Eid celebrations, the first time people were not able to gather, and I think often of the thousands of people that would gather in Dentonia Park for the great Eid celebration that we would do outside, and it wasn't possible this year. And so people have been, I think, very understanding and very patient, but I know we all want to get back to being with each other as we were in the old days.
That's very encouraging to hear, and I think a lot of our viewers feel the same way. And we hope that though a unique experience, we hope this Eid was the last one that we have to celebrate in this fashion, and we can go back to going out and meeting with all of our friends. And on the topic of friends, I want to shift to your own constituency of Scarborough Southwest, where you have a very diverse range of different income brackets. You have middle-class families who have outstanding mortgages, own their homes. You have a good amount of families living in rental housing, young Canadians, older Canadians. You have new Canadians. You have everything. Like this riding almost represents all of Canada, all in one riding. And
you remind me, by the way, I have the best riding in Canada because it is the most diverse, and people from all over the world, and it is a great riding, and it's a great community because of the people that live there.
And I agree. I concur. I want to ask you, from your constituents and in your riding, what's the feedback you've gotten regarding the government's assistance programs that have been provided, things like the CERB or the increased Canada Child Benefit?
Yeah, a couple of things, very important things happened. We realized right away when this illness first came and people had to sort of go into social isolation, that it had huge impacts on families and businesses right across the country, and certainly in Scarborough Southwest. And so we moved very quickly to make sure that we had money available. People shouldn't have to be going through all of the anxiety and fear that this virus has created without also having to worry about how to feed their families or how to pay their rent. And so we immediately provided the CERB, as you mentioned, to people who need that money. And we worked really hard to get money out the door as quickly as possible so that people, with all of the things that they were dealing with, would have the help they needed as quickly as possible. We've also gone to some of the businesses and we've said we would like it possible for you to keep your employees on the payroll. And so we're now paying 75% of those payrolls to allow businesses to retain their employees, to continue to support the families, because they are like a family in many of these businesses. And so we're working hard to keep that working as well. We know that people with children face additional challenges during this, and so we've made additional money available through the Canada Child Benefit. I think that was necessary and important. And we've learned over the past 4 years how important the Canada Child Benefit has been to families in Scarborough Southwest. It's made a huge difference. It's lifted literally thousands and thousands of children in our community out of poverty. And we wanted to make sure that we were there for them and protecting them during this particularly difficult time of dealing with the virus. And as we begin to move forward to reopen, we're looking at additional investments to help people pay their rent, additional investments with childcare, because we know that's important when people need to go back to work. And things are going to be different. We're going to have to do certain things in our lives differently. And even, for example, taking our children to daycare while parents work. We're going to have to find new ways to support that and enable that important activity to take place so that it can be done safely. And so we're prepared and working hard to make the investment. At the same time, I want to give a bit of a shout out to my constituency office. And you were such an important part of that constituency office for many years. But, we provide really important support and services to the people of Scarborough Southwest. And with Naheed and Amanda and Jess and Nadine now working there, I want to let everybody in Scarborough Southwest know that we're still there for you. We're still there working to help. We're making some changes to the office. And when you come and visit us the next time, you'll likely see some plexiglass screens up on the wall. We're going to try to do our best to rearrange the waiting areas so that people can visit us safely. But we want to be there for you, and we know that people need our help, and we want to make sure that we're there to provide that help and assistance.
It's good that you mentioned the constituency office and the incredibly talented folks that work, my former colleagues that work in that office. During the course of the pandemic until things do reopen, what's the best way to contact the office should any of our viewers need any support?
Yeah, we're still maintaining all of our phone lines and our email and things like that. If they want to reach out to us, our people are still working every single day, and we're putting some, as I said, some health and safety protections in the office to allow them to go back to having people visit us and seeking our help, and be able to do that in a way which protects our constituents and clients that come to the office, but also protect our workers. You know, and I think every business is going to have to make those adjustments. We have to think this through. And it's also something I will tell you in government, we're thinking a lot about is how do we help business and our communities and our retail stores and in all the places where we as Canadians gather and work and go about our lives, how do we help create safe space? Either making sure people have personal protection equipment, or that we realign our businesses and our processes so that they are done safely. We're working on that in our constituency office in Scarborough Southwest, and we want to help businesses and communities right across the riding to get ready for sort of a new way of doing business that will be necessary for us to go back to business, but do it in a healthy and safe way.
Now, you know, we've spoken a bit about the topic of reopening and the new investments that would come with reopening and the new processes. Now, the one thing I do want to ask is, let's say we do have a second wave of this virus, or it goes on for longer than we expect. Would the government be willing to take, you know, further steps to potentially extend the CERB or talk to the banking sector to say, you know, yes, thank you for the 6-month deferral. We need to take it a step further. Or are those things we can expect to happen if things do trend in a direction we don't want them to trend in?
Sarwar, when this virus and the pandemic first struck in Canada, we did everything to make sure that we were there for Canadians, and we're not going away. You know, we're in for the long haul, and you know, in God willing, we will not face a second wave, but it's always a possibility. And we want to make sure that I think we're in a stronger position today than we were 3 months ago. I think Canadians have a much better understanding of the things they need to do to keep themselves and their families safe. You know, we've learned a great deal about how this illness is being transmitted. We've learned a great deal about the use of personal protection equipment, why it's important to wash our hands frequently, and other infection control measures. We've learned a great deal about maintaining social distance. It's a bit of an adjustment to us. I've been a person who reached out and shook a man's hand every time I saw him. And I'm going to have to change my way, because apparently I can't do that anymore. But we've learned. And hopefully we can avoid the same type of outbreak that we have previously experienced. But as long as Canadians need us, we'll be there for them. And I think as a country, we are prepared to make whatever sacrifice is necessary to protect Canadians.
Now, on that topic of hopefully getting back to normal one day and being able to shake hands with our friends and colleagues, on that topic, I must ask you a bit of a selfish question. You become a bit famous over the years in Scarborough Southwest for an ice cream social that you do, where you pull up to parks and give out free ice cream to everybody. And I need to ask you, when things do get back to normal, can I get a commitment on live air from you to bring the first one to my neighborhood of Kennedy Park?
Yeah, you know, I have to tell you, Sarwar, for me, an ice cream is just a way to get the kids out. And because for me, the important thing is neighborhood and community and people coming out and being together, to bring their children to the park, to speak to their neighbors, to give me a chance to speak to them. Those are great days. And we've had many, many beautiful evenings. I will always be around to get you an ice cream cone, Sarwar. But I will also, as soon as we are able, I want to get right back to creating opportunities for us all to come together. And, you know, I also wanted, we joke a little bit about the ice cream in the park, which is one way we get together. But I'm also blessed, being the member of parliament for Scarborough Southwest in my community, in our community. There are so many great community organizations and community leaders and events where people come together, where we gather with friends, we see each other, we celebrate together, we celebrate our diversity and our culture and our music and our kids. It's great. You know, this pandemic and my responsibilities as the Minister of Public Safety, unfortunately, has kept me away from, and the circumstances in our community now are keeping us all apart. I very much look forward to the day when we can all come back together. You have my commitment to bring the ice cream truck. I'll bring it right to your front door, if that's what's required, Sarwar, because it would be nice to see you and everyone else again soon.
Thank you, and we'll hold you to it when things do start to reopen. Now, just keeping on that topic of reopening, what's one thing that you're really looking forward to doing once this is all done?
You know, I think, like every grandparent in the country, I miss my grandchildren, and you know, we were all separate. I've on a couple of occasions been able to go and I stand at the end of their driveway, and just see them at their door, and it's as close as we can get. They're doing everything necessary to protect and keep me safe. I'm going to do everything necessary to keep them safe, and I'm reminded that all of us into having this experience. All of us are separated from the people that we love and our friends and our community. And I am very much looking forward to a day, you know, this has been a very difficult time for all of us, but it also serves to remind us how important we are to each other. And I'm reminded how important all of you are, and all of my family and all of my friends are. And I'm looking forward to the day when we can all be back together again, that we can talk and embrace each other and be together. That may take some time. We may have to find new ways to be together, just as you have, and as Mr. Minto has provided us with an opportunity to do this talking into our computers, but we are at least together. And until we can be together in reality, this isn't bad.
I agree. It's there's nothing like a call unless it's a Zoom call nowadays.
Yeah, no, we're all getting better at that. I'm shocked sometimes at the technology. It seems to work very well. I don't know whether you've had a chance to see this, Sarwar, but we've actually been doing a virtual parliament where 338 of us are all in a sort of a managed type of a Zoom conversation for 2 hours every day.
That's incredible. I think a lot of our viewers have been able to see that, but CPAC usually shows when the House sits. Is there anything like that for this virtual setting that we could?
It is available on CPAC, and I have to tell you, the show can be a little bit boring, and I'm sure people have better things to do, but not in as much as we're all stuck at home. And sometimes the kids might be driving us all a little crazy. If people want to tune into that, I can assure you we'll try to make it interesting for them.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on the show. As we end off today, I just want to ask you, do you have any final message that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, and because I could not be with you, a belated Eid Mubarak to everyone. I hope it was a rewarding and blessed celebration and a period of reflection for all of you. I also want to wish you health and safety for everyone in our community. You know, this illness is still dangerous, and particularly for our elders. I think the risk is still quite significant, and so I want to encourage you all to continue to do the things that are necessary to keep yourselves, your family, your loved ones, and your community safe. And until we can get through this together, I want to wish you all the best. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your kindness to each other. And let us continue to work hard to support each other.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that message. I think you're on mute.
Shahanara Buya, she wrote, "In our community, children love you so much, Mr. Bill Blair."
That's very kind. Thank you.
Rumana Chowdhury, she wrote, "What is the Honorable Minister's opinion about sending spaceships in this COVID-19 pandemic? Would the world not have better use of this money?"
It's very difficult because we've had to spend a lot of money to provide people with the support payments. The CERB, for example, support for businesses and for children. But that's what the money is for, to invest in Canadians, to keep Canadians safe. I don't think there's a better use of that. And it has not been without its challenges, but I think it's very important that we be there for each other and we take care of people right here in our communities. And not just in our communities, but make sure that we are also there for our families and friends around the world.
I have one last question. Many people in the Bangladeshi community are small business owners. What support is government offering?
Yeah, there's a great deal of work that we're doing for small business. And for example, we've provided salary support so that small businesses can keep their employees working. I know our Minister of Small Business, Mary Ng, is developing and introducing programs that will provide resources to businesses, not just to carry through this period of the pandemic and the downturn in businesses taking place, but to help get businesses to get back on their feet, to get reestablished. And we've been talking very interestingly about a strategy about main streets. And we know about main streets. The Danforth is a main street in our community. And we want to get people back to Main Street. And we want to make sure that the businesses on Main Street, which are so important to our community, and as you know, so important to the Bangladeshi community, we want to make sure that we help them get back into business, get back bringing people out into the community, and are again successful. They employ a great deal of people. They bring a great deal of prosperity to our community, and we're going to develop programs and have funding assistance to them to help them get reestablished. They're going to have to change some of them the way they do business, and we'll help them make those changes so that they can be successful, so that they can create prosperity, but they can also do it safely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Be well, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
Sarwar.
জি।
অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ দেশ বিদেশের পক্ষ থেকে এই মূল্যবান ইন্টারভিউটি নেওয়ার জন্য। তো কি মনে হয়, কি উনার কাছে কি প্রশ্ন উত্থাপন করা হলো এবং উনি কি বললেন, যদি আমরা বাংলায় একটু যদি ডিসকাশন করি তাহলে অনেক দর্শকের জন্য সুবিধা হবে।
যে আমরা প্রোগ্রামটা শুরু করছি, ওনাকে দুইটা মেইন কাজ ওনার পোর্টফোলিওতে, যেটা এই কয়েক মাসের মধ্যে ওর মিনিস্ট্রি করছে, আমাদের মিনিস্টার ব্লেয়ারের মিনিস্ট্রি, যেটা হলো মিনিস্ট্রি অফ পাবলিক সেফটি। ওরা একটা অ্যাসল্ট রাইফেল, মিলিটারি স্টাইল অ্যাসল্ট রাইফেল গুলা ব্যান করছে এই দেশে, যেটা আমাদের ফিউচারে আমরা আশা করি যে এই ব্যানের পরে যে অনেক গান ক্রাইম যেগুলা হচ্ছে এগুলা হয়তো কমে আসবে। এবং আমাদেরকে মিনিস্টার বললেন যে আরো স্ট্রং পলিসি গুলা ওরা নেবেন, যাতে আমাদের সিটির মতো আরবান এরিয়া গুলাতে যাতে গান ক্রাইম আরো কমে আসে, যেগুলা হ্যান্ড গান যেগুলা থেফট হচ্ছে ওগুলা যাতে কিছুটা একটা কন্ট্রোলের মধ্যে আসে। ইউএস থেকে যেগুলা গান স্মাগল করে আনা হচ্ছে ওগুলা যাতে গভর্নমেন্ট কন্ট্রোল করতে পারে, বর্ডার সিকিউরিটি যাতে কন্ট্রোল করতে পারে এটা। এরপরে আমরা ওনার সাথে মিনিস্টারের সাথে কথা বললাম নিয়ে কোভিড-19 নিয়ে। কয়েকটা মেসেজ উনি বললেন, যে একটা হলো যে ইউএস বর্ডার আর কানাডিয়ান বর্ডার যে এখন যে শাট ফর নন এসেনশিয়াল ট্রাভেল, ওইটা ওরা আশা করতেছেন যে ওইটা কন্টিনিউ করবে যতদিন দরকার এতদিন পর্যন্ত। এরপরে ওরা বললেন যে গভর্নমেন্ট যেগুলা প্রোগ্রাম যেগুলা দিয়েছে এইগুলা প্রোগ্রাম ওরা দিতে থাকবে যতদিন কানাডিয়ানের দরকার আছে, অতদিন ওগুলা ওই ফিডব্যাক গুলা ওরা এটা কনসিডার করতে থাকবে। আর ওরা এই ওনার এমপির রাইডিং সহ স্কারবোরো সাউথ ওয়েস্ট সহ বিভিন্ন রাইডিং থেকে ওরা এটা নিয়ে একটা পজিটিভ ফিডব্যাক পাচ্ছেন। আর ফাইনাল একটা জিনিস যেটা আমাদেরকে বললেন মিনিস্টার, ওইটা হলো যে ওর অফিস এখনো ওরা বাই ফোন এন্ড ইমেল ওরা এখন অ্যাভেলেবল আছে, যদি আমাদের কমিউনিটির কেউ কোনো হেল্পের দরকার হয় কোনো জাতীয় ইস্যু নিয়ে ওরা ওর অফিসের সাথে এখন ওরা যোগাযোগ করতে পারবে।
আর ইউএস বর্ডার ব্যাপারে কি বলছিলেন, বর্ডার কবে খুলবে কি?
বর্ডারের ব্যাপারে উনি মিনিস্টার বললেন যে বর্ডারটা যতদিন পর্যন্ত এই সিচুয়েশনটা কন্ট্রোলে আসছে না এতদিন পর্যন্ত বর্ডারটা ক্লোজ থাকবে। ওদের মেইন প্রায়োরিটি হলো আমাদের গভর্নমেন্টের যে ভাইরাসটা থেকে কানাডিয়ানদেরকে সেফ রাখা।
ওকে, অনেক সময় দিলেন সারওয়ার, অনেক অনেক খুশি আমরা কমিউনিটি, আমাদের দর্শকরাও আশা করি খুশি হবেন যে মাঝে মধ্যে আমরা এরকম বিশিষ্ট ব্যক্তিদেরকে, মূলধারার বিশিষ্ট ব্যক্তিদেরকে আমরা আমাদের টিভি চ্যানেলে নিয়ে আসছি এবং তাদের কাছ থেকে আমরা আমাদের কমিউনিটির বিভিন্ন প্রসঙ্গ তাদের কাছ থেকে তুলে ধরে তাদের মতামত আমরা জানতে চাচ্ছি এবং একটা কমিউনিকেশন আমরা তৈরি করছি, একটা ব্রিজ তৈরি করছি, একটা সেতু বন্ধন তৈরি করছি। আপনাদেরও ভালো লাগা না লাগা আমাদের লিখবেন এবং আমরা শীঘ্রই আগামী সপ্তাহে নতুন কোনো অতিথি নিয়ে আবারও আপনাদের সাথে সামনে উপস্থিত হব। ধন্যবাদ সারওয়ার চৌধুরী।
আমি পার্সোনালি আমার ধন্যবাদ আপনাকে দিতে চাই এবং দেশে বিদেশে টিভিকে যে এরকম একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট ডায়ালগ আমাদের পাবলিক ইলেক্টেড অফিসিয়ালদের সাথে করার যে একটা প্ল্যান যে আপনারা নিয়েছেন, এটা আমাদের কমিউনিটির জন্য আমি আশা করি খুব বেনিফিশিয়াল হবে। আর এটার জন্য আপনাকে পার্সোনালি আর আপনার চ্যানেলকে পার্সোনালি ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই।
ধন্যবাদ। প্রিয় দর্শক, এই ছিল আমাদের বিশেষ আয়োজন। আগামীতে আমরা আবারও নতুন কোনো অতিথিকে নিয়ে এই বিশেষ আয়োজন করব। আর আজকের মতো এই অনুষ্ঠানের এখানেই সমাপ্তি। আমাদের পরবর্তী লাইভ অনুষ্ঠানটি প্রচারিত হবে টরন্টো সময় রাত 10টায়। মন্ট্রিল থেকে এক ঝাঁক শিশুকে নিয়ে আড্ডা হবে আমার সাথে এবং সেসব প্রতিভাবান শিশুদের এই অনুষ্ঠানটি দেখতে আপনারা ভুলবেন না এবং আমাদের সাথেই থাকবেন। ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত আপনারা ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন এবং ঘরে থাকুন।